What's going on, everyone? Welcome to TLE TV, TLE News. I'm your host, Hassan Labduni, and today is a very important day right now in the conscious community, especially among black folks, as Dr. Umar sits before the Board of Psychology in the state of Pennsylvania to find out whether or not he's going to have his credentials removed. According to Dr. Umar, lots of black people have been harassing his credentialing institution, harassing them, giving them phone calls, this and that, and apparently there's been some sort of scandal, if you will, with GoFundMe, where GoFundMe has also stripped this campaign. They halted his campaign. They suspended his account. And Dr. Umar also blames black folks on that. He's saying that black folks are out to destroy what he is trying to do for black people. So Dr. Umar is going to sit before the board this morning. We're waiting to find out more on what's going to go on with that. But as we await word on Dr. Umar's predicament, let's go ahead and speak on Dr. Umar and break down the message versus the messenger. Now, no one has said it better than my favorite comedian, Eddie Griffin, in his 2011 comedic stand-up, You Can Tell Him I Said It, where he drops the gems explaining the differences between the Christians and the Muslims and the arguments that they have. Now, from the very first moment that I heard the punchline that he used within that joke, my perspective and outlook on the world was forever changed. Now, he pointedly drove his message home to the audience, asking them, did they get the message, after telling them to disregard the message. And what I want to do here is actually give you some context. So I'm going to go ahead and play that clip, just that joke, maybe a little bit as far as like little background lead up to the joke, just so you understand what I'm getting at here. And then we'll move on as far as with Dr. Umar. So let's go ahead and play that clip.
I'm telling you, I think Christians are jealous of Muslims. Because you ain't going to out-devout a Muslim. That's the most devout faith you'll ever run into. A Muslim will strap a bomb on themselves and blow themselves up about some Muhammad. Ask a Christian to put a bomb on and blow themselves up about Jesus. No, he wouldn't want me to do that. He just blessed me with this house. I'm sure he wants me to live in it. Everybody fighting over this religious shit. You understand me? The Christians say Jesus is the messenger. The Muslims say it's Muhammad. I say, who gives a fuck who the messenger is? Did you get the message? They got the same damn message. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Science proves that to be a fact. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. Don't fuck with me, and I won't fuck with you.
All right, so now did you get the message? No, did you really get the message? Eddie Griffin was ahead of his time when he said that. When he broke it down in a simple way. Did you get the message? Forget this messenger. If they're all speaking the same thing, did you get the message? Now, anyway, how many can truly say that they've received the message? Now, this has been a growing problem in religious circles. Time and time again, we hear stories of how pastors of a church, in most cases mega churches, but it happens a lot in small churches as well. They just don't get as much publicity. But many of these pastors, they disgrace the call, they disgrace the church, they disgrace the name of the good Lord Jesus Christ himself. Now, the members of his or her flock, in the midst of them doing all these disgraceful things because they follow the messenger and not the message, the members of these flocks come to the defense of the minister using all kinds of excuses to explain away the imperfect behavior, saying that no man is perfect, oh, we should forgive, this, that, and so on. And yes, that may be true, but at the same token, it is still the leading example and teacher and pastor or senior person in your establishment, in your institution, and it is painting a bad example for others that come behind. And if you continue to make way and give excuses for the people that are in power, Donald Trump will stay president forever. Now, anyway, it's come to a point where the sheeple have become followers of the messenger rather than the message. So did you get the message? Now, so what does this have to do with Dr. Umar Johnson? It has a lot to do with Dr. Umar Johnson. He is a messenger with a message. And with this message, and I haven't followed the doctor from the very beginning, but when I did stumble across his message, it resonated with me. His charismatic delivery, his fact sheets, his work on the front lines, his track record, him working with the school-age black and brown boys bolstered his message and his credibility. His hands-on experience with the students gave Umar the credentials in the field of school psychology to be able to speak on it when he gives his lectures. Now, by and far, this was just my opinion, but Umar would have been the next biggest thing since Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey if you were able to continue. And only time will tell if he will be able to continue. Now, not to get off topic, and I do wanted to throw one thing in there as we approach Martin Luther King Day, which will be on next Monday on the 15th. Have you ever wondered why the United States of America celebrates Martin Luther King Jr.? They herald him, they give him a holiday, they observe this day and so on, but they don't recognize Malcolm X, they don't recognize Marcus Garvey. Think about that. Just let that marinate. Anyway, back on to Dr. Umar. Now, Dr. Umar's message is clear and concise. His message is Pan-African to the core. For those that are not familiar, Pan-Africanism is a worldwide intellectual movement that aims to encourage and strengthen bonds of solidarity between all people of African descent. It is based on the belief that unity is vital to economic, social, and political progress and aims to unify and uplift people of African descent. Now, while Dr. Umar's message is Pan-African in nature, his primary focus is on the miseducation of the black youth, in particular black boys. Now, Dr. Johnson rails against the abuses of special education and how the school system uses special ed as a crutch to the detriment of black boys. He connects ADHD and special ed to the school-to-prison pipeline and instructs parents for free how to maneuver the bureaucracy of the American education system. Now, this message brought forth by Johnson is a message of self-sustainment and self-fulfillment. Now, although focusing primarily on the American education system, he also touches on geopolitical topics that affect the global African family and they should be aware of. For example, prior to Barack Obama's first election win in 2008, Umar Johnson predicted that Obama would be elected. Not only did he predict that he would be elected, he also predicted that Obama would do 2 terms. Not 1, but 2 terms. And at the end of that second term, blacks would find themselves back in a Reconstruction era. The Reconstruction period was a period after the Civil War from 1865 to 1877, where blacks, although freed, were still treated as second-class citizens, much like today. Now, you fast forward 8 years, and Johnson successfully predicts that Donald Trump will win the White House. Trump enters the White House and makes it his mission to roll back all of Obama-era policies. Now, it's uncanny how Dr. Johnson has been able to call these events out prior to them happening. It's unprecedented. And in a simple YouTube search, we'll be able to pull up many videos of Dr. Johnson doing just that. Now let's focus on the messenger, Dr. Johnson. Umar Johnson is a doctor of clinical psychology and a certified school psychologist. And as a former school administrator and school district psychologist, he's worked with special education and disruptive behavior disordered student populations for more than a decade. Now, Johnson has served as an expert witness in court hearings. He has done countless presentations around the world. The doctor is a Garveyite and calls himself the Prince of Pan-African or Pan-Africanism. Now, Umar doesn't really fit the narrative of your average Negro. Although he speaks on white supremacy, his mindset comes from a different angle. Johnson is unapologetically African. He is committed to his point of view. His position on various topics remains steadfast in the face of even the harshest of critics. Dr. Johnson is also a man. He is prone to the same deceptions men before him have faced. So far from perfect, Johnson has had his fair share of blunders. Now, going into this first, well, it wouldn't be the first blunder, but the first notable blunder was his affair, you can call it, I guess, with the conscious stripper. Now, in 2015, a scandal of sorts ran through the conscious community claiming an illicit affair on behalf of the doctor. Now, this affair involved a blonde weave-wearing resident of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Kim Ringgold. Going by the name Conscious Stripper online, Ringgold outed Umar in a series of Instagram posts and tweets and YouTube videos, which lay out personal text messages between the two. Now, Johnson initially denied dating the exotic dancer, contending it was a series of after midnights rendezvous. We know how that goes. But according to Madame Noir, the publication Madame Noir, he blamed his escapade with Ringo for allegedly costing him $1 million donation for his boys' academy, which would have come from an unnamed NBA player. Now, the doctor could have handled the situation better, but let us remember that he is unwed. He is not a married man. He didn't cheat on his wife. He didn't step out on her. And it's not like he was doing something with a white woman, because these are the things that Umar speaks about. In that respect, he has not cheated. He has not been unfaithful. Many leaders, both black and white, have strayed outside of their marriages, whether heterosexual or homosexual. We had a senator over in Kentucky who was caught in a motel with a 17-year-old boy. Keeping on. But many of these black and white leaders have strayed outside of their marriages. They have weathered the storm of scandal, and they still remain. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s accomplishments are not devalued or not denigrated over his acts of indiscretion. Former President Bill Clinton completed his full term as president in spite of impeachment hearings, and he was still able to do what it was he went into the White House to do. Now, as a single black man, Johnson is free to sleep with whomever. That is his prerogative. Now, some say by sleeping with a stripper, Umar isn't living up to the ideals he speaks passionately about. Now, on the contrary, Umar speaks out against homosexuality and interracial dating. He slept with a black woman. Sounds like it was in line with his teachings. And that's about as basic as it gets. Now, he's not a Catholic priest. He's not a monk. He's not a rabbi. He did not make a vow to celibacy. He is a grown adult man doing what grown adult men do around grown adult women. Now, let these two consenting adults go at it. And let's just say, by some stretch of logic, he's not living in line with the rest of his message. Well, what Christian, politician, or cop is? It detracts nothing from the message. The damage that is done to the messenger, but not the message. The message still remains intact. Now, let's address the whole thing with the Pennsylvania Board of Psychology. Last month, Umar shared on Instagram and Facebook that he was being called before the Board of Psychology in Pennsylvania. Now, from his perspective, a legal lynching was underway in an attempt to strip him of his certification. Now, reviewing the board's website revealed that, yes, there is a difference between a certification and a license for practicing psychology in the state. Going back over Dr. Umar's videos and his speeches, Umar never said that he was licensed. He always made sure to clarify that he was certified. Even in his book that he has published, Umar mentions being certified, not licensed. Now, Dr. Johnson has lashed out at fellow blacks for what he perceives to be attacks on his character. His GoFundMe campaign was halted again, because it's not the first time, and Facebook incarcerated the doctor. And as of right now, as I mentioned back at the beginning, at the top of the show, that Instagram has just yesterday removed Dr. Umar's account. So now what people of color should consider is the indoctrination of white society. According to their standards, white society, white supremacy, according to their standards, unless given the stamp of approval by one of their institutions, you are not credentialed regardless of how much experience you have in the field. But take, for example, Dr. John Henrik Clarke. Dr. Clarke studied the ins and outs of African culture and how it evolved in the United States. He didn't require a white man to teach him about his ancestral DNA. Logically speaking, if a system is in place to the detriment of black and brown youth, the people who put it in place will not accept opinions, messages, or anything that are contrary to the agenda that they have approved. Now, for example, you have Big Pharma. Big Pharma is not going to give the green light on medical marijuana because they will lose a lot of money, tons of money. To protect their bottom line, Big Pharma has to remain staunchly opposed to cannabis used for medical purposes. This is why they spend so much money lobbying Congress with all the disposable income that they've been able to amass just to keep the money train going. The same could be said for the removal of Dr. Umar Johnson's certification. So my final verdict with regards to Dr. Umar, the message versus the messenger, whether you like the doctor or not, you can't ignore the facts. You also can't ignore his work for his people and his track record. Even Ray Charles can see Umar's dedication through all the free services that he provides. What other black leader do you know make themselves as accessible as Dr. Umar? He gives out his personal number, his email address at every lecture and event. Johnson responds on social media. He conducts a free Black Parent Conference call every Tuesday morning. Umar the messenger is almost as good as it gets. But in fact, he is still human, and we must understand and remember, human imperfection will always be there. Now, personally, I don't like how arrogant Dr. Umar has become. I don't like it. All this pompous acting and everything that he's been doing from his beef with Cyrus and Seti and so on. I don't like how arrogant he's become, and I feel that Dr. Umar is taking a page out of hip hop just to gas himself up as the Prince of Pan-Africanism, or Papa, as he likes to refer to himself. And he calls himself the most requested scholar. He may be the most requested scholar, black scholar, don't know. But don't get me wrong, take pride in your accomplishments, especially if they're truly earned, but let's not get pompous about the work that really needs to be done. Now, certification, no certification, my respect for Johnson remains. I don't have to agree with how he delivers the message and presents himself, but the message still remains clear. Quite frankly, the black community has bigger fish to fry than Dr. Johnson. There are ills in the community blacks would rather sweep under the rug instead of clean out. Better to focus your energies on more pressing matters. One of the main problems in the community is that people would rather bicker and fight instead of roll up their sleeves and get to work. Now, Dr. Umar Johnson speaks truth, whether he lives it or not. That doesn't change the truth that is spoken. Eddie Long molested little boys, but does that change the word of God he purportedly brought forth? You be the judge. Anyway, Dr. Johnson, man, may the ancestors be with you. I hope everything works out for you. Like I said before, I started following you, and your message resonates with me. I may not feel the whole arrogant act that you do, the whole bigging yourself up and just let other people gas you up. But I mean, that's just you. We're all human. We have our flaws. There's no perfect leader. I just hope that, everything works out for you and you come through a real warrior on the other side, and you still strive for FDMG. I'm your host, Hassan Laduni. This has been TLE TV, TLE News. Have a blessed day. Ashe, Black family.